Some influencers don't say much, quietly making deals behind the scenes. Mark Cuban is the total opposite. The owner of the Dallas Mavericks is known for criticizing referees and presidents alike. His business chops go back to the 1990s, when Cuban co-founded an online streaming company that he sold to Yahoo for $5.7 billion. He has since invested in dozens of startups and continues to do so as a host of the show Shark Tank. Cuban is here to talk about how to pick the right investments, ignoring everybody else's noise, and maybe generating some of your own. Hello everyone, I'm Andy Serwer. Welcome to Influencers and welcome to our guest, Mark Cuban. Mark, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Mark, of course, entrepreneur, star of Shark Tank, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and in fact, he's hosting us here today. We're at Dallas Mavericks headquarters here, right across the street.
Yep, right across from the arena.
From the arena, right. So, whole bunch of stuff to talk to you about.
Fire away.
But let's talk about this president thing, that's out there. There are people who suggest that you should run for president. Maybe you have aspirations, I don't know, but it's a discussion point. So what would it take to have you run for president?
I'm excited about next year for the Mavs. It's going to be a great season.
Man. Come on, man. Don't get off track.
I don't even want to get into it. I mean, I did one quick interview and then all of a sudden it blew up. I don't want to feed the beast.
Right.
Like I said, if there's a certain set of circumstances that would push me to do it, but we're not there yet. So if and when it happens, you'll be the first to know, Andy.
Okay, that's very cool. What about the Democratic field? Is there anyone there that you think can challenge President Trump?
Well, I mean, there's now and then there's November of 2020. I mean, if the election were held today, I think Trump would win, right? I don't think that there's somebody that has the momentum or just the value of the incumbency that Trump has. But at the same time, between now and then, I think Joe Biden's got a good chance, and we'll see what happens with any of the field of 97 to see if anybody emerges or if anybody new comes in. I think Biden's capable of beating him, but we're not there yet.
You've been critical of President Trump before. Have you kind of made any peace with him? I mean, it's been a couple years.
Yeah, I get along with them.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have to make peace. Like any president, I agree with some things and disagree with other things. It's not personal. There's things I would do differently, and it was the same with Obama. It was the same with Bush. It was the same with Clinton. That's just the nature of the beast.
So have you talked to him and given him any advice, or what advice would you give him?
I mean, I'm not a fan of the tariffs. If I understand what he's trying to do in terms of battling China, I would approach it differently because I think tariffs are a tax on the American people. But at the same time, I think we have a variety of other leverage points. I'll give you the perfect example. Chinese companies listed on American exchanges have a market cap of more than $1.4 trillion. That's a lot of leverage right there. They're raising money via IPOs, something we can't do in China. I'd shut down all Chinese IPOs. That's the first step. And given his propensity for using Twitter, and just as a kind of throwing warning shots, I would throw out there that we might put a halt on the trading of Chinese listed stocks in the United States. Now, there are American shareholders, but the reality is that long term, the value of the company is the value of the company, but a trading halt would certainly create a lot of disruption for those Chinese companies. And I don't think it's untoward at all to reconsider, treating Chinese companies like they do ours.
Right.
We can't list on their exchanges. I don't know what the SEC is thinking, because given that every Chinese company has a connection in some way or another to the Chinese government, how does the SEC enforce any type of trading laws? Can you imagine if you're a big Chinese listed company and the government, someone high up in the government says, I need to make some extra money. Tell me how business is and what you're going to report. What's the SEC going to do to them, right? And so there's all kinds of enforcement issues that I think come up. And I'm not suggesting that that's what happens now, but we have no idea of knowing that it doesn't.
Have you ever run that by President Trump?
No, have not.
Or anyone else in Washington?
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in Washington about a lot of things, but I'm sure it's not something that I think has reached his level.
Right. I want to get into the SEC and about a lot of other
Sure.
things as well, but let's talk a little bit about growing up. You grew up in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Your father ran an auto upholstery.
We didn't run it, he worked there.
He worked there, okay. So what was that like, Mark, and how did that inspire you?
I mean, my dad busted his ass. I mean, he worked six days a week, left at 7:30 in the morning, got back at 6 or 7 o'clock, lost his eye in an accident doing upholstery. He had a staple break when he was putting some covering on a car seat. You know, it was a middle class upbringing. My mom did odd jobs. You know, they just wanted something better. I mean, my grandparents came over from Russia, and you know, my dad was the first generation. My uncles were the first generation Americans, like my mom too. And you know, like every child of immigrants, they wanted better for their kids.
You know, it's funny. I mean, a lot of people grow up that way, right? But not many people end up like you. So what do you think that's the result of?
I think, you know, everybody's got something that they're good at, and the hard part is just finding it. And I found out early that I was a good salesperson, that I really liked business. You know, like I like sports. I mean, I read everything I possibly could, played sports as much as I could, just wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And business was the same way. I mean, as long as I could remember, I was buying and selling baseball cards, garbage bags, whatever I could find, stamps to collectors. But I was also reading everything I possibly could about business. And, you know, I was that unusual kid that I'd rather read about Ted Turner than go to the movies. And so I think that created a foundation. And my parents didn't always, my dad used to always say, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I had my ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just think that I just put in the time and was fortunate enough to really get excited about business, and that paid off benefits over the long haul.
I mean, you almost have to have that drive. Like, in other words, you can't fake it. You can't,
No.
like, pretend that you want to read about Ted Turner and, okay, I'll skip one movie.
Well,
it has to be in
you
your soul.
Yeah, I mean, you can fake it till you make it in a lot of areas,
Yeah.
particularly if you're working for somebody else. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be great at something, you've got to make the effort to be great at something. Whether it's sports, whether it's physics, math, science, business, whatever it may be, you know, it's not just a natural skill. You've got to learn, and particularly if you're in the technology industry, because it changes every day. You know, when I got started, and you know, after I was a bartender when I first came to Dallas, got into the PC industry, got fired, started my own company, but I learned early on that there was always something new, and most people didn't put in the time to learn it. It's like now with artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about machine learning and neural networks. Not a lot of people are putting in the time to take classes or do the tutorials or to learn how to apply it to business, and that's what it takes. And you know, that's just something I've always enjoyed, so I've been fortunate at that.
Now, wait a minute. Are you doing that with AI
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
now? What are you doing?
Oh, I mean, I've been on Amazon doing the machine learning tutorials. Right now, I'm going through, I've taken Python online classes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go in my bathroom, there's a machine learning for dummies book. I just started JavaScript, neural networks. There's a little tutorial where they've got most of the library, brain.js and all the libraries. And it's not, if you have a background in programming, it's not hard. But I'm not trying to be great at that, but I want to understand it. So I understand all the, you know, the nuanced elements of it and how it works so that I have an advantage.
Well, where would that take you? Like with your businesses here or the Mavericks, or you don't
Oh,
even
everywhere.
know?
It takes me everywhere, right? I mean, there's nothing that AI won't impact. As big as having been around a while, I saw the impact of PCs, then I saw the impact of local area networks, then I saw the impact of wide area networks, then I saw the impact of the internet, then I saw the impact of mobile, then I saw the impact of wireless. You know, now I'm seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, and it dwarfs any of those things. And if I don't understand how to apply it to my businesses, I mean, I remember selling PCs and software and walking in saying, you don't need to use that pen and paper on a notepad or a ledger pad. Now we're going to give you a spreadsheet, and by the way, here's a spreadsheet that costs $495, and I had to pay to go get trained on how to sell it, which is crazy now when you think about it. But then we said, okay, now you can play what if. Then we said you can connect these PCs. Unless I understood the technology, how was I going to explain it? How was I going to understand it? Unless I understand it now, how am I going to invest in it? You know, then I got to go trust somebody who says, oh yeah, I know AI, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. And it's really easy just to okay, say you figure it out. That's just not my style.
So you're building a base of knowledge, and then you think that at some point it's going to pay dividends in terms of...
It already has.
Right?
I mean, if you truly believe AI is going to change everything, how are you going to understand what people are doing to change everything unless you at least have a foundational understanding of it? Now, I'm not going to build a 1,000,000-layer neural network and try to change the world. I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to write a research paper and saying, here's why the lottery ticket approach works, and you can build smaller neural networks with less data and be more, resource efficient. But I can read that stuff and understand that when somebody says, okay, we're building this project and we need this size data set or this size data set, or we need this amount of resources, I can ask questions and understand the answers.
So you grew up in Pittsburgh, went to the University of Indiana for a while, then you said you came here. How have you adopted this city? Why did this become your home, Dallas?
Well, I mean, when I went to IU, I had a bunch of friends that graduated and came down here, and they're like, you got to get your ass down here. The weather's great, the women are beautiful, the economy's good. I said, wait, back up. And I came down, lived 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment until I found my way, and I've had a blast and loved it ever since.
So how do you describe yourself, Mark? I mean, I said entrepreneur. Is that how you would describe yourself? What do you do for a living?
I describe myself as a grinder. I just, like we talked about learning, that's a grind, but I love it, and I think I've just learned what I'm good at and learned to focus on those things and try to, utilize those skills to now, not just be an entrepreneur, but probably more often now invest in and help other entrepreneurs.
Okay, so take us through your business interests right now. You have the basketball team, you do stuff for Shark Tank, you have stuff here.
You can go to markcuban.com, I list them all right there.
Right.
And so really, I mean, I've got Shark Tank and I've invested in 100+ companies there. We've sold a bunch, so I think I've got 70 that are active now. It follows the normal distribution. Probably 10 are struggling, 50 are doing great, and 10 are doing incredible.
Right.
But I think now I've really evolved some of my focus to trying to help disadvantaged entrepreneurs, people who have less opportunity. I just invested with a woman, Arlen Hamilton, who we together created a little $1 million fund where she's going out and finding 10 businesses run by people of color or disadvantaged LGBTQ type communities and just opening doors, because I think my experience applies to anybody. Right? Any entrepreneur, no matter what you're trying to sell. And I also think that it's a great business opportunity simply because the markets that they want to sell to are underserved. There just aren't as many entrepreneurs, so there's more opportunity. And so I think it makes great business sense as well.
But let's go through some of these other things. So starting with Shark Tank. I mean, what's Shark Tank like? Is it really a kick the way it looks like it is?
I mean, it's great. We start shooting here probably in a couple of weeks, June 12th or 13th, I think it is. And the way it works literally is we show up on set in Sony Studios, and I get there about 8:30 and they put on a little bit of makeup. I throw on my suit. Like Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, and Lori, they have to get there 2 hours earlier because they need tons of makeup. They need. Kevin's got a lot more land.
Listening to that.
Kevin's got a lot more land mass to cover, and Lori's Lori. But in any event, we start shooting at about 9. And they just bring in deal after deal after deal. We know nothing about them. They'll say, this is, Joe and Sally, and this is the name of their business, and they'll walk in and give our pitch. Now, on television, it might take 10 to 14 minutes. In real life, if it's a stupid deal, it might take 20 minutes and then before we're all out. Right. And then if it's an intense deal, it could go 90 minutes, 2 hours. And then they have to edit it down. But it's our money. It's all real. We know nothing about them. If we decide to do a deal, then we have the opportunity to do due diligence after the fact, because sometimes they'll embellish. It's a polite way to put it. Yeah. My widget cost $1 to make, and we sold 1 million of them, when in reality, their widget cost $10 and they've sold 6.
That happens sometimes?
Yeah, it does happen more often than you'd think. The producers are supposed to ferret that stuff out, but not a lot. Doesn't happen as much as we'd like. So yeah, we'll do due diligence, and about 60% of my deals close. Right. The other little thing is, of the deals that present to us, and we'll see, in any given season, 250 to 300 that are presented. Probably 25% of people who pitch us, that come in, are taped and pitched to us, don't even make it on air for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. And let me ask you about your entertainment business, the movies and 2929, Magnolia. What's that all about?
Well, back in 2000, I guess it was, after I'd sold Yahoo, right after I bought the Mavs, I started the world's first all high-definition TV network. When everybody was saying high-definition television's not going to happen, I created a network called HDNet and HDNet Movies, and there was very little content for it. I mean, literally, this is when high-def televisions cost $15,000, and everybody said, who the hell's going to pay $15,000 for a TV? And I went around telling everybody, no, you just wait. Those televisions are going to drop like a rock in terms of price, and everybody's going to want one that goes on their wall instead of this big, ugly hunks of analog TV. So I had that, but we didn't have content. And so we wanted to go out there and create content. And we also bought Landmark Theaters, which we have since sold. But we wanted that vertical environment where we could show it on television, put it online, offer DVDs, put it video on demand, and also offer in theaters. And so we created 2929 Productions first, where we produce movies.
What does that name mean, by the way?
2929 was because the address for AudioNet, the streaming company we created, was 2929 Elm Street.
Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Right.
And then, so we had movie production 2929. We had Landmark Theaters. We also bought Reicher Entertainment, which we've since sold, that owned Hogan's Heroes and some others, so that we could put it on HDNet Films, and then Landmark. And so the idea was to have it vertically integrated.
Right.
So we were the first company to produce a movie, put it online, download. They basically offer a day-and-date release of it called Bubble, and we've been doing Magnolia and 2929 Productions ever since. The others, Magnolia and 2920, the others we've sold.
What do all these businesses tell you about the economy right now? What do you think the outlook is?
Well, that's a good question. So some of my smaller Shark Tank companies that resell products are getting crushed by the tariffs. I mean, I've got one that may go out of business simply because tariffs at 10% were one thing, tariffs at 25%, they just can't compete. There's other companies that have bigger and better supply chains where they were more creative and were within 5% of their prices, but now with the tariffs, it's almost impossible, and the uncertainty, it's made it very, very difficult. But beyond that, I mean, business is going well in urban markets, and it's a little bit tougher in smaller markets. So, I mean, it pretty much mirrors what you see in the general economy.
Right. Are you surprised at how long the stock market rally has lasted?
No, I mean, if you go back to 2008, it's pretty much on a straight line. You know, when President Trump got elected, it was a little blip. With some of the things he's done, it's taken it back to the straight line. So it's pretty much, you know, where you'd expect it to be. There hasn't been, I mean, like any market, there's going to be ups and downs, but there hasn't been anything dramatic to change it.
Are you concerned about a recession or the market faltering?
I mean, I'm concerned about black swan events, the anomalies that can hurt us. I think in general, you know, the markets tend to just go up, you know, on their own, by their own weight. And so there's no reason for that to change now. Maybe if the trade war extends or something happens with Iran, or, you know, again, there's something aberrational that puts us in a difficult situation, then it could change. But otherwise, I mean, there's no reason to think that, other than stocks, individual stocks, you know, doing what they do, that the market won't continue to go up on the same line that it has since 2008.
You mentioned the SEC earlier, and obviously you've had some issues with them. What do you think about the SEC, just generally speaking?
I think they're kind of useless. You know, I think if the SEC really wanted to make the market safer, they would publish bright line guidelines. So, for instance, there's no law, specific law on insider trading. There are only precedents, legal precedents, that have been set as a result of various cases that the SEC has brought. Well, if you run a public company, that's okay because you probably have a general counsel who's training you in doing it, on what you should and shouldn't do. If you're just an investor, you have no idea. You're not a lawyer, and you shouldn't be responsible for, talking to a lawyer before you decide to talk to somebody at a company or make or sell or buy or sell a stock. And I'll give you the perfect example of some of the stupidity. There was a case, and I forget the name of it, where a guy was going to work. It was a railroad company in Illinois, I think. And every day he'd go to work. One day in the parking lot that everybody shared, there was a bunch of limos. And then another day there was a bunch of limos. Mm-hmm. Then another day, the guy literally guessed that the company was being sold. And he bought stock. The SEC sued him. Right. Now the SEC lost, but that's just some of the ridiculous stuff that they do. I'll give you another one. We had a company, Share Sleuth, that did research on some companies, and they found a company that was putting out press release after press release about how great their business was with this new energy solution, I think it was. And we sent somebody out there to just look at the factory, or just called. We didn't even send it. We just called the factory. Nobody answered. Then we called somebody local, I think it was the power company, and said, do you have power turned on for this location? No. Called up somebody local, go look at this building. Nobody was there, right? Company, we shorted stock, company died. The SEC did nothing. Didn't care.
Yeah, so what's the difference, right? Let me ask you, what do you think about Elon Musk's war with the SEC? What do you think about Elon Musk generally?
I mean, I don't know him very well. I mean, I've talked to him a couple of times. I like him because he's competitive. He's obviously got, a genius spirit and a mind for innovation, which I love. But he's also very competitive. Mm-hmm. And when you've got a bunch of bureaucrats trying to come at you in a world where there aren't bright line guidelines, that's tough. I mean, it's like when I was battling the SEC, it took everything I had not to just say F you every minute of every day, because it was ridiculous. I mean, if, in some of the due diligence and that we were able to do, the things that they said about me, the ridiculous approach they took, and so when you have that coming at you, it's hard. Now, I wasn't running a public company at the time. He is. And so, he's under a different microscope. But like I told him, it was like, you got to just try to bite your tongue no matter how hard it is, because they don't care. They don't care. They're only in it for skin on the wall, because they're, like in my matter, there were people who left the SEC before the conclusion when I kicked their ass in the trial I had, and they would put on their resume, worked on the Mark Cuban matter.
Right.
And that's what I told Elon. This is a resume builder for them. They don't give a shit. They don't care about you, right? They care about their resumes, and that's tough to fight. And I also told him, I said, look, here's how stupid the SEC is. Name the last 5 people that you know, that you can remember, that were sanctioned by the SEC for violating insider trading laws. You name me, Andy. Tell me.
I can't name anyone.
And so when the SEC does these enforcements thinking that they're going to impact people trading, it's ridiculous, because in this day and age, you can't communicate that to people. It doesn't. People don't think, wow, this guy got busted, this guy got busted, this guy got busted, or woman got busted, so I better not do this stuff, or I better learn because he did this or she did this, and so that's an indication that that's the wrong thing to do. No. It doesn't work. There's no educational value, if you will, and there's no disincentive based off of the findings from the SEC or the rulings that they have or the court rulings they have. It goes into the ether and nobody remembers it unless you're in the securities industry.
Right.
And so it's kind of useless. Their approach is kind of useless. I'll give you another example. You can go on YouTube and look this up. So I try not to talk to CEOs of public companies whose stock I'm considering buying. Right. Because I don't trust the SEC. So there was an instance where I was thinking, well, maybe I want to talk to the CEO, and this was a couple years ago. So I took my camera and I started videotaping myself calling the SEC. And I identified myself. I wasn't trying to be underhanded. And I said, look, I'm thinking about talking to this company. I don't know if this would violate any SEC rules. Is there anybody I can talk to that can give me guidance? And so they sent me to another person and recorded that, sent me to another person, recorded that. Finally, they sent me to a web page. And that web page was a picture of a letter from 1980, no lie, saying I needed to fax 8 copies of a request to this number.
Right, right.
That's our SEC.
Right.
You know, they're not helping at all.
Right.
And you
Right.
talk about, and I can go on for days, and
Yeah.
I won't talk here, but
Yeah.
one other piece. If you look at all the ETFs of foreign countries, right? If those foreign countries' stock markets that those ETFs sold in America represent,
Right.
they don't have all kinds of enforcement
Yeah.
requirements,
Yeah.
right?
Right. So it's a whole.
Yeah, and so it's
Yeah.
not like we're letting people invest in these markets where there's not
Right.
enforcement, because it really doesn't net out to be
Right,
anything
right.
of any value.
Speaking of Silicon Valley a little bit, what do you think about Facebook and Google and those big companies? Should they be broken up? Are they too
No.
big, or do
No.
they need any enforcement?
So there's two pieces there.
Mm-hmm.
One, just looking at the state of the union, if you will. I mentioned earlier that AI is, you know, the biggest thing that's happened in a long time. Well, if you talk to Vladimir Putin, he says whoever dominates AI is going to win. You know, is going to be a dominant nation. You talk to China, and they talk about their 2025 or 2035, whatever they called it, plan that was built around AI. In the United States, we don't have those plans yet. But what we do have is 5 to 10 really, really big tech companies who dominate the research and development in the AI space. If you were to break up any of those companies, Facebook, Google, as examples, Amazon, well, we're going to lose our greatest competitive advantage that we have versus the Chinese and the Russians in a space that we need to dominate. So that's part one. Now, maybe that gets resolved over time if we invest as a country more, but that is a big issue. Part two, in terms of breaking them up, you don't have to use Facebook. You know, you don't have to use Amazon. It's not like there aren't alternatives. You don't have to buy from Netflix, you know. So I don't see them as utilities like the phone, where the only way you could use a phone was to go through AT&T back in the 80s. And even then, all they did was give access. Now, I do think there are privacy issues, but those aren't breakup issues, right? I think the law, like if you look to, say to Facebook, don't ever sell your data to anybody else.
Right.
Think about what's happened. Now Facebook has control of all that data.
Right.
You talk about the law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Well, you've made Facebook stronger, not
Right,
weaker.
right.
Now, if anything, there should be a built-in delay, and they should have to publish that data anonymized and make it available to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you solve the problem. And then you also have the other issues of, you know, the content that they present being harmful or misguided, brutal in some cases.
Yeah.
And I think I think for them and for Google and others, that's where you change the copyright laws. Right. Back in the day, there wasn't really the consideration that there would be forward-facing videos and other content that would be protected by the not the whole what is it for the copyrights, safe harbors.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So now there's safe harbors,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
the copyright owner has to send a takedown notice.
Right.
We should go back. A television station is, for example, you guys can't just pull off something offline, online, and just present it here and broadcast it, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get permission,
right.
You've got to sign a licensing agreement.
Yeah.
That's the way it used to be for digital copyrights, and we should go back to that.
Right.
So that Facebook just can't say, well, it's none of our business, right? And if somebody has a problem with it, issue a takedown notice, and we'll try to use AI to proactively recognize if there's a shooting environment, you know, something horrible is going on, right? If you flipped it so that the DMCA safe harbors only protected you for inward facing as opposed to outward facing videos, then just like Yahoo Finance, just like every TV network, you have to go out and get a license, then it all changes, and you're not going to see that horrific content. You're not going to see, because those people aren't going to sign a license.
Right, interesting. Let me shift gears a little bit, Mark, and ask you about economic inequality and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her agenda. What do you think of that, and why do you think people find it so appealing?
I love AOC, right? I don't always agree with her, but I think she's learned the lesson of social media, where you get long and you get loud and you get people's attention, and then you deal with substance after that.
But what do you think when she says that the idea that we have billionaires in our society is immoral?
I mean, it makes for great headline porn. I mean, she started a business. Bernie Sanders has a book business. You know, Elizabeth Warren buys and sells houses, or did, right? If they would have had the level of success that I and others have had, I don't think they'd be complaining as much, but that doesn't mean that there's not an income inequality problem. There is, and it's something we have to deal with. I tell, other business people that, the greatest cost to business is social disruption. If people are rebelling and burning things and aren't satisfied with their lives and they're incented to do horrific things, that's the greatest cost of business, and that costs us more. Now the question becomes, how do you deal with
address it? Yeah.
Right. So, I'm not a fan of trickle-down economics, right? Where I don't think that works. I don't think it has worked. Where the richer people get, the more they make available to others. Hasn't worked. I'm also not a fan of trickle-down taxation, right? The concept that just tax those who have a whole lot more, then all of a sudden it'll find its way to those who need it. Doesn't work. Hasn't worked. Won't work. It's not that taking more money. I'm okay with paying more taxes. I don't have a problem with that. Where the issue is, how do you make it work?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get it? Now, the reality is, anybody who's working and getting paid by the hour is going to have a challenge when something goes wrong.
Right.
Right? Do you lose a job? Does the dishwasher break? Does somebody get sick? Is it more than your deductible, or if you haven't covered your deductible yet, can you cover your deductible? If you're getting paid by the hour, it's hard to save money. I don't care if it's $10 an hour, $15 or $50 an hour. It's a difficult position. The only way that people really improve their wealth is by buying a house, condo, whatever it may be, owning shares of stock. And so I think that's where you start to change the rules. I think when you have a company like Uber changed, but who was it that was it Pinterest? Where there's multiple shares, like Snap has got multiple classes of stock.
Yeah.
I think you tax them differently. If every share of stock in a company in the public market is not treated the same, then it should be it shouldn't be. I'm trying to think of the right way without stepping on too many toes. If you have an advantage class of stock,
right,
it should be treated as normal income when you sell that stock.
Right.
Right. If everybody's got the same share of class of stock, then you treat it as capital gains.
Right.
Right. If you've held it for more than a year, I think you also advantage people if you have a company where all employees are offered stock. You give them other tax advantages.
Right.
Because then, to AOC's point, you're lifting from the bottom up. Trickle down is not going to work. But if you create opportunities where people all have to share in stock, then the disparity is going to decline because everybody's going to go up when things happen. Like when we sold broadcast.com, we created 300 millionaires because 300 out of 330 people invested their stock.
Right.
So when you work from the bottom up like that, people have a chance to increase the value of their wealth. If somebody's below a certain level of income and they're able to buy a home and you give them more tax advantage, you don't take away their deductions because they're in California or New York.
Right.
When they have a lower income. Now they did some things to offset, but still, you want people to be able to accumulate assets that enhance, that grow in value, that appreciate. That's how you get people so that their life becomes better.
Okay, let me ask you about America. I mean, people are bitching about America. Is there something wrong with this country, or is it just the usual stuff? I mean,
I think it's the usual stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, now everybody's got a platform, so it's a lot easier to bitch. I call it headline porn. You're only going to get attention. The more dramatic you are, the better chance you have of getting attention. And that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, there used to be gatekeepers to media. Now there's not. And if you're loud enough and either crass enough, or maybe it's a great idea and people get behind it enough, then you're going to be heard. It doesn't make us bad. It's just the game has changed.
I mean, there are problems like our healthcare system, right? How would you fix that? And mass shootings, there's shootings.
Well, I think first, there's a book I read in high school that I ended up buying a copy of. It's called Why Men Rebel. And basically what he said was, when your expectations for your life going forward are increasing, but the reality is diverging from that, and so what you thought would happen with your life and where you are gets further and further apart, then people do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. Whether it's a mass shooting, whether it's, who knows what, cheating, whatever it may be.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think taking care income inequality and lifting people up from the bottom and creating more opportunities and giving them tax advantages, maybe it's an earned income credit, whatever it may be, then I think you'll see fewer of those events. You know, other people will say it's a mental health issue. I don't think we've had all those same type of issues, you know, for hundreds of years in this country. I think it's more about when people really get disappointed and they have nothing to lose, they'll do things that people with nothing to lose will do.
Is it guns a problem as well?
Yeah, I would do guns completely differently. You were listening to some of my last interviews, weren't you?
Yeah.
I would do guns completely differently. I would go to change the Second Amendment in ways that people probably wouldn't expect. You know, it's not easy to change an amendment, but what I would do is change the Second Amendment so it said, one, every American citizen has the right to own a gun, period, end of story, written in the amendment. Two, the federal government will never be allowed to ever confiscate that gun from an individual, period, end of story. Three, states have the right to manage the ownership, the purchase and ownership and management of guns owned and held within their borders. So that if you live in a state like Texas, if the law in Texas is open carry, so be it. If you live in Pennsylvania where they're more stringent and they don't want you to be able to have a gun other than in your own premise or, you know, under lock and key, or, you know, have to do a background check, then that's up to them to decide. And so, if, you know, we're trying to take a Second Amendment that has been analyzed up and down and backwards and forwards, and it's created its own set of problems. You know, let's update it.
Right. We got to switch over to basketball and talk about that. So, want to ask you a bunch of questions. So, first of all, state of the Mavs right now.
I think we're in good shape. I mean, we have Luka Doncic. We're bringing back Kristaps Porzingis. We have cap room. So hopefully we'll be much better than we have been the last 3 years.
Right. You had some issues here with the culture of the team with Terdema Ussery, and I know you apologized for that. You addressed that. How did that culture happen, and do you feel like you've addressed it?
If I knew it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And yeah, I think we brought in St. Marshall, and I think she's done a phenomenal job. She's been here over a year, and I think it's a whole new culture, a whole new Mavs, and, you know, like I alluded to earlier, we've learned that diversity creates opportunity, and now we're able to sell into markets we never were able to sell in before. So I think it's made it a better place to work, a better organization, and a better foundation for the future.
What about the NBA overall, Mark? What's the state of the NBA?
I think it's great. I mean, I think
you like Adam Silver, the job that he's done?
I love Adam. I love the job he's doing.
Right.
I think we appeal to, you know, a variety of demographics. I think our audience is growing here in the United States and globally. There was just a survey saying we're the #1 sport in China. So, you know, we are truly a global sport, and so I think our future is very bright.
Golden State Warriors, the most annoying team ever in the history of the NBA?
I'm not going to go there.
I'm trying to lead you on to that one.
Yeah.
What about the Lakers and what's going on there? Magic was just sounding off.
You know, I've said it many, many times. I hope they suck, and I hope they suck forever.
Now, that one you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, but I've said that before, right? I said it about every team, right? I want them all to be awful. Just one team I want to be good.
Right. And what about your, you know, history with refs? Have you mellowed? Or I mean, there's no conspiracy against Mark Cuban, or is there a conspiracy?
I mean, there were moments where, look, refs are human too, and they have biases like everybody else. But, you know, my challenges with officiating has always been about management more than the officials. And so I've paid my fines, and some things have changed for the better, some things still need changing, and so I'll keep on working on it. If it means taking a fine, I'll take a fine.
Generally speaking, Mark, as we kind of wind things up here, you have lived your life as an iconoclast. And in a way, that's a template for other people, but in a way, it isn't. So in other words, how much, you've got an ordinary person, ordinary man or woman, how much of an iconoclast could you or should you be like Mark Cuban?
Oh, I don't care. You should just be yourself, right? I mean, I take pride in the fact that I didn't give a shit what anybody thought or said. I was just going to be myself, and, you know, I'm my dad's son, I'm my mom's son, I'm my brother's brother. You know, I'm Alexis, Alyssa, and Jake's father, Tiffany's husband. You know, I just try to do the best like everybody else. I mean, I've been blessed. You know, like I say all the time, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I just try not to take it for granted. I try to enjoy every minute. And I think now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I try to give a little bit more back than I have before, and try to help more people. And in terms of whatever, if anybody else finds themselves in my position, just enjoy the moment, enjoy every minute of it.
I mean, I guess my question is, are you a role model for people in society?
I don't know. I mean, I never thought of it. I mean, it's not something I try to be. I just try to be myself. I just try to help where I can, do what I can, be a good dad, and I'm not trying to be something for somebody else, just myself.
And finally, do you have any notions of where you want to be professionally or personally 10 years from now?
I think.
I mean, do you have plans like that?
Not specific plans. I mean, I try to put myself in a position now where I can have an impact. You talked about running. There's a variety of ways to have an impact. Fortunately, people open their doors for me. And so whether it's working on healthcare, whether it's working on crazy ideas like changing the Second Amendment, whether it's supporting, talking to the Senator Schumer, he's got a program that creates more doctors, which if you're going to reduce the cost of healthcare, you're going to need more doctors because supply and demand. If we ever want to get to universal healthcare, the United States has got 2.3 doctors per thousand. Scandinavian countries have 50% more. But those are types of things where I can start having an impact. I can start, spending some money on things that lead to change, helping entrepreneurs, whatever it may be. So I don't have a specific plan. I don't have a specific bucket list, but I hope that all these things I'm learning can lead to some level of change. So we'll see.
All right, Mark Cuban, thank you very much
My
for having
pleasure.
us here today.
Thanks.
You've been watching Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll see you next time.
When technology shatters an industry, it takes moxie and imagination to put the wreckage back together. Gary Vaynerchuk has made a habit of it. First a pioneer of e-commerce, Vaynerchuk transformed his family's wine business from a $3 million startup into a $60 million online operation. Then in 2009, he co-founded Vaynermedia, a digital ad agency that has grown to over 800 employees and works with companies like Pepsi and JP Morgan Chase. He also puts out a daily video series and regular podcast in which he offers advice for success in business and life. He's here to talk about sectors ripe for disruption and how to capitalize when it happens.
Hello everyone, I'm Andy Serwer. Welcome to Influencers and welcome to our guest, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Although I should say our host because we're here in your building in Long Island City, so thank you for having us here.
Thrilled to have you.
So let me ask you this very basic question.
Sure.
How would you describe yourself? Say, my 6-year-old nephew. What do you do?
I'm an entrepreneur. At its most purest sense, I am an operating entrepreneur who happens to put out a lot of personal content of that journey. So there is some awareness of who I am as a human, but at the end of the day, I'm an executive of several companies that I run. Vaynermedia and the VaynerX holding company of agencies and service providing companies is really, really, really what I do. That's it. It's not super complicated other than the fact that I decided that it was in our business interest and in my own curiosity of what would it be like if you documented and produced content at a scale that had never been seen before around an executive.
Right.
What would it have looked like if Arianna Huffington, when she started the Huffington Post, what if she put out 5 to 10 pieces of content a day in podcast, vlog, and content across all the social platforms every day of the first 6 years of that journey? What would that look like? And that's what I decided to do.
I mean, in a way, it's kind of timeless, like the entrepreneur part. On the other hand, you couldn't do what you do today, say, 20 years ago.
Not only that, I didn't do what I do today when I ran my first company.
Right.
When I kind of took the reins of my dad's liquor store in 1998, I think, the cynical part of being so out and about is the showmanship, the narcissism, the self-promotion. I try to remind people, I'm like, look, a lot of times the accolades that I get in business today, people pass off as, well, he's internet famous and that's why it's happening, so it undermines my operational and executive skills. And when I get sad about that in a debate or a conversation with a friend or a foe, I try to remind them, like, look, I was a 22-year-old kid who from 22 to 28 grew a business from $3 to $60 million a year, and I didn't make content. I wasn't on the internet. I was an operator. I was a marketer. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. Not only could other people have not done it in the past, I already lived an entire chapter of building an entire business that had nothing to do with having a personality attached to it. I was just the operator of.
Yeah, it's pre-internet, and you know, yeah, you needed your social skills, but you were running and operating businesses, you said. But let me ask you, you've got 5.5 million followers on Instagram, 1.8 million on Twitter. How do you do that? I mean, I always hear people, oh, you just create content and you sit there, but it couldn't possibly be that easy.
Well, it's definitely not that easy. That would be like saying, how do you become a professional basketball player? You just play basketball. Like, how do you become?
But you need talent then?
Yes.
So what's the talent?
By the way, let's stay here for 4 seconds because it's a huge platform and I think we're about to help a lot of people. The number one non-conversation going on in today's society around influencers and other things is the talent part. Like, now, talent comes in all shapes and sizes. Your talent may be that you're a model. You're just very attractive.
That's me.
Right?
No,
you
that's
know
not me.
Right?
Okay, yes.
Or a comedian, or an athlete, or a thought leader. I do believe that education and entertainment are the two pillars. But yes, I mean, you know, back in 2006, I started making wine videos on YouTube. In 2007, I aggressively put out content on Twitter. Had the things coming out of my mouth not been interesting to people, I would not be sitting here with you right now. It's not super complicated. Most people have taken some version of an attempt to become somebody people know on the internet. Most people. You know, there's a set that's very private. Most people have taken a dabble into a LinkedIn article, into a nice photograph they posted on Instagram, into a single YouTube video, a couple clever tweets. Most people have tried.
Right. So what's the secret of making people engage with your content? I mean, it's just
empathy.
Smarts, empathy, okay.
Empathy is the secret. I believe I sit at where I am in the lexicon, which is, I think, a winning player in today's new environment because I'm empathetic to my audience. I put out content that brings them value, not makes me feel good about myself.
Right. How many posts do you put up a day on Insta and Twitter? And those are your two main platforms?
Those are the two main platforms that I myself completely control. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I've, over the last 3 to 4 years, amassed a team of content creators, media amplifiers, strategists around my content. But I fully control Instagram and Twitter, and I put out 4 Instagram regular posts and probably, you know, anywhere between 3 and 25 tweets a day.
So that's a lot.
By the way, big shout out to you and your team because the train going by now, the fact that you guys didn't stop it, I'm so pumped right now. I'm fired up. Like,
we wouldn't stop for that. If my phone rang, we wouldn't stop.
I love that.
That's like old people, old school stuff.
But there is an evolution in content creation. Like, it literally just took note. I'm like, oh, I like these. Good job. Go.
And that's empathetic. So how does the business model work? Like, so explain your company to me. Is it Vaynermedia? Is that the entire business? And
Vaynermedia was the first company for about 6 or 7 years.
But this is Vayner what?
Yeah, I mean, that's just inside
that's
stuff.
Just
Okay.
That's
an inside stuff for us. We have fun with that. But Vaynermedia was the first company. After building up Wine Library, and then after being an investor in Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and having kind of Silicon Valley success, I decided to start the agency with a premise that eventually I would want to buy nostalgic and historic brands. And I would run them through my progressive consumer-centric marketing model. So I started an agency. It grew very quickly. Now there's something called VaynerX because 2 years ago I bought PureWow.com, a women's lifestyle brand. We started a men's brand recently called 137 PM. Then we started a speaking bureau 6 months ago called Vayner Speakers. We started a company in January to service small businesses because Vaynermedia is made for Fortune 500s called the Sasha Group, named after my dad, which is fun. We have a tech platform called Tracer that is evolving in a separate company. So now there's a VaynerX holding company, and very honestly, it's really no different than Publicis or Omnicom or WPP, or for people who are watching, it's just Mad Men 2020, right? Obviously, a hell of a lot. You know, I haven't watched the show, but I assume what they've had on the show, it's a heck of a lot culturally better. But
Right. So how
it's an advertising agency.
Right. So the business model works like you have Fortune 500 clients. Like, give me some names.
Chase, Budweiser, Pepsi,
Okay.
Hulu.
And they pay you money
Service
to do
fees to make
campaigns?
pictures and videos on the internet and on television. Planters Super Bowl spot this year was made by this production company that we're in, and ideated creatively by Vaynermedia. We are paid to make pictures, videos, written words, marketing collateral. What's unique about Vaynermedia in today's world is under the same roof, we also then are the media agency that places the media. We buy the ads on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Yahoo. We do the execution. That was the way it was done in the 60s and 70s. The same people that made it also bought the television, then they separated them. And now most agencies either do creative or media. Vaynermedia does both.
I mean, a lot of people say the ad business is dead. The legacy companies, I mean, certainly they're under a lot of pressure. Is this sort of a new model, a good way to do things?
Yeah, I agree with the street and the business pontificators that the old model's in trouble, but I don't think it's necessarily because they didn't have media and creative under one roof. I believe it's because they were publicly traded companies and they had to make their own numbers. And when you're a service provider, if you only care about your EBITDA and your stock price, your clients eventually are gonna feel that.
Right.
And when they feel that and they feel the negative effects, I actually believe there's an incredible book to be written, similar to like Barbarians at the Gate, of what the 4 or 5 biggest holding companies in the world have accomplished in the last 25 years, which is through consolidation. They have basically extracted the value out of the biggest brands in the world. If you look at the biggest brands in the world that have used the publicly traded agency model over the last 20 years, they've declined while the agencies have grown. Only now are they starting to decline because the cat's out of the bag, because the biggest brands in the world are starting to look at Vayner and other independent alternatives, and that's bad for the holding companies.
So you wouldn't necessarily look to go public?
I'm incapable of being a CEO of a publicly traded company, so no, we will not.
Yeah, maybe Elon Musk should have said something like that at one point.
But, right? I don't know Elon well enough, and I know he's a character. I'm not incapable because I want to curse on video. I'm incapable because I don't know how to run a business that needs to perform financially every 90 days because I'm a marathon runner, not a sprinter.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of refreshing to hear that you don't necessarily need this payout, but you don't need that for your employees. I mean, there are a lot of private companies that have been around for decades and decades, right?
That's exactly
right. You
right.
don't have to go public, right?
No, I don't want the cash infusion to buy a boat. I want to enjoy running a company, and I need independence as an entrepreneur, and so I'm not willing to give up my independence for $400 million up front.
So you were running a liquor store,
Yes.
and then the internet happens. I mean, how and when did you realize that the internet was going to revolutionize, let's just say, the business of communication?
October 1994.
You have a date?
I do, I'll tell you why. October 1994 was the October of my freshman year of college. And in 1991, when I was in high school, that's when I started becoming passionate about my dad's liquor store, and I said, I'm gonna open 150 of these. I'm gonna open the Toys R Us of liquor stores. I remember being a high school kid thinking. And then in October of 1994, I went into my friend's dorm room and discovered the internet. And within 10 minutes, I found myself on a baseball card bulletin board on AOL, and I saw that people were selling. And I'm actually,
what do we got
they're
here?
not gonna see it, but you're gonna see it. These are literally
Goosebumps. That
That's
is
right.
goosebumps.
This is real goosebumps,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. It changed my life. I can feel, how, I mean, I'm really getting them right now.
I feel that's legit. That's a legit goosebump. Okay.
So I'm excited about this because it was a really transcending moment. Like I'm a weird kid, meaning I was a true entrepreneur. I was ahead of
94 was early, but that was before Netscape. Way before Netscape.
I'm not sure the timing.
Yeah, but
Is
it
that
was.
right?
Yeah,
I believe
because
you.
you were on an AOL bulletin board,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And I just remember thinking, this is it. I don't know what to say. I was like, this is it. And literally, 2 years later, because it took a little bit of time, I launched WineLibrary.com, one of the first e-commerce wine businesses in America. and it changed the course of my family's wine business.
So how do you build an online brand?
Easily. You produce content on the 7 to 25 places where people pay attention, and you produce it around things you know, and you amass awareness. I mean, how did Nike build a brand? They ran commercials. They did sponsorship. Like, it's just attention arbitrage.
What does that mean?
For me, it means my career, oftentimes I reference Mariano Rivera when I talk about my career. Mo. Mo was one of the great closers in baseball history. And
Robbie knows that. He's a big Yankee fan.
And so you're going to appreciate this. Right. He had one pitch. He was solid at everything else, but he had this one pitch. And besides Edgar Martinez, literally nobody could hit it. And that's who I think I am. I'm good at other things. I'm a good COO, like I can operate. That's why I have businesses. I'm very good at HR. I'm good at PR. Like, I'm good at other things, but I am, this is now me talking about myself, but if you ask me, I think I'm remarkable at understanding what humans are actually doing before the masses understand they're doing it, right? I understood that online dating in 2001 was gonna be mainstream. That wasn't obvious until 2011, right? Or 13, or whenever Tinder really took hold, right? And so what I mean by that is I built Wine Library on the back of email and Google AdWords. In 1997, no liquor store in America thought it was a good idea to build up an email newsletter versus the catalog that they could send in the mail.
Right.
Got it?
Right, yeah.
In 2001, I bought every Google AdWord for every wine term, and nobody was bidding me up.
Right. God.
Got it?
Yep.
In 2006, this is now documented, thank God. In 2006, I started a wine show on YouTube in February 2006. I was one of the first people to move fast on Twitter. I have podcasts and LinkedIn, like I'm consistently first.
Right.
And that skill has allowed me to be good at real estate.
Right.
Somebody bought up all of Dumbo.
Yeah.
Somebody once bought up most of Malibu. Like, some people see it.
Right.
I see human behavior.
Okay, so what do you see right now?
Voice.
What does that mean?
That means that everybody in this room and everybody who's watching this video is gonna do a lot more things with Alexa and Google Home and Apple Pod than they think today.
Like what?
Order every single food that they eat. All of it. In 13 years, you will mouth in your office, in your home, you will say, send me a burger, or can you get me a Shake Shack, or I want a whatchamacallit bar. Get me my Sprite.
Quinoa.
That's right.
Even.
I want a quinoa salad, and this is where branding comes in. I want a quinoa salad. If you say that to Alexa, Amazon now has a lot of leverage. What quinoa salad are they gonna send you? Their own private label? Is some brand gonna pay $500 to be the affiliate? So you better say, I want Sweet Greens quinoa salad, which is why brand is about to become so much more. Brand has always been the most important. Brand's about to become even more important because we're going to an audio-centric lead gen world, not a visual-centric. It's gonna be very big.
Sounds like you think Amazon has a lot of upside here.
I sure do.
Yeah.
Unless the government gets involved, which I don't know that stuff, that's above my pay grade, I would buy Amazon stock in perpetuity until Jeff Bezos no longer runs the company.
But Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they have a lot of advertising power. Does that concern you that they've got so much of that pie?
Of course not, because CBS, ABC, and NBC had that whole pie. Because the New York Times and the Washington Post had all that pie. And Yahoo at one point, I mean, there's always somebody that controls the pie.
I know always people whining about it.
That's right. Microsoft should have been broken up. IBM should have been broken up. Google should be broken now. It's the same old game.
But should they be broken up? Facebook?
I don't think so, mainly because I think that there's always another young Turk coming up, and she or he is going to destroy Mark Zuckerberg because Mark Zuckerberg becomes passive, because Jeff Bezos becomes passive, because Bill Gates becomes passive, because people become passive.
Right. They become content,
old, curious in other things, different parts of their life, sick, die.
Right.
This is run by people.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in Long Island City. We just talked about Amazon.
Yes.
What did you think about that? Was the city right to boot them out, or activists right to boot them out?
I'm so pumped you asked this question.
Good, let's talk about it.
I have no idea.
Come on, man. You said you wanted to talk about that and you're punting.
I'm not punting.
Okay.
The reason I just got so excited is as a guy who speaks with heavy conviction, which could come across as audacity or ego or overconfidence, nothing excites me more than when I'm interviewed, when I actually don't know the answer to something and I can say I don't know.
But that's just it. So why don't you know? That's the follow-up question.
Because I'm not willing to do the homework of the collateral things that happen after the fact, right? I don't understand the actual math around. My intuitive nature is when the greatest company in the world, or definitely in America, wants to set up shop, that has trickle down value prop. What I don't know is the concessions that the state or the city does, and the arguments on both sides of the equation properly and possibly have actual value to them. I just haven't taken the time to dissect it. Let me give you an example. I believe that TV advertising is grossly overpriced.
Right.
I also think that the Super Bowl is the #1 best buy in marketing. So that's a contradiction within the micro of the macro. That's why I can't answer the LIC. I don't know.
Right, right. Well, what do you think about politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says that we should have more government involved in terms of people making higher wages?
You know, it's an interesting question. You know, I was born in the Soviet Union. So I laugh when Americans try to paint, liberals as socialists or communists, because that's Americans that haven't lived in communism.
Right.
So here's what I would say. I am stunningly socially liberal. At the same token, I'm an alpha entrepreneur and believe in many of the things of capitalism. What I don't like is when capitalism gets old, aka an alpha gets old, and then she or he tries to use their money to change the rules of merit. So I'm disgusted by that. At the same token, I have many 20-year-old kids hitting me up and saying, Gary, you're rich, you should give me your money. So I'm very scared of the slippery slope of massive entitlement.
Yeah.
So, more government involvement doesn't hit me well in my alpha player on the field, I'm an entrepreneur. It hits me tremendously well as I'm the human being and I want everybody to be healthy and happy to the best of our abilities. I think the answer is always somewhere in between. The biggest problem I have, listen, I'm willing to give up 95% of my earning. I really am.
Yeah.
Let's go to taxes.
It may be getting close to that in this state.
I'm willing to. I just want to be the one who gives it away.
Right.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna work my face off, bleed, in perpetuity, and I'm gonna give it to you, and you're gonna decide who got 36,000 votes? And you've never operated anything in your life, and you're third generation wealthy, or your ideology, and you have no practical skills? This is not about giving away money, it's about giving away money to people that have no idea what to do with it. That starts where it gets a little complicated. So, I want everybody to be awesome and happy and healthy, and I'm willing to pay unbelievable amounts for it. I just want to see how you're going to spend it.
Right. Shifting gears a little bit. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people do, but very few people actually pull the trigger and even fewer succeed. What are the barriers there?
Talent.
But that's disheartening. That means you're just you're born, you can either play in the NBA or you can't.
No. That's a very good point. I think it's the following. My brother AJ is a better basketball player than me because he's put in more work on his left hand and his jumper, so he deserves it. He's not in the NBA. You can be an entrepreneur. The problem is we've lost sight of being an entrepreneur who makes $137,000 a year doing what she or he loves is an amazing life. But right now everybody thinks they're gonna be Mark Zuckerberg. So we've become audacious and ludicrous and delusional in our entrepreneurial ambitions. And so I think we need a level of self-awareness. I think people are trying to be entrepreneurs at a level we've never seen before because the cost of entry of saying that you're an entrepreneur in your Instagram account is very easy. Right. It's also cool right now. I'm actually quite scared about that because I don't want to be the face of that because I think 95% of people are going to fail, especially when the economy fails. Let me say something straight to camera. If you're not a successful entrepreneur right now, in the easiest time to be a successful entrepreneur because there's so much money in the system and the internet is at scale, you suck.
All right, that's some tough love right there.
It's the truth. This is the easiest time in the history of life to be a successful entrepreneur, and if you're not, and you're struggling, then you're not an entrepreneur. Listen, I'd love to be playing for the Jets and the Knicks or be opening the Grammys. It's fun, sounds rad. just not capable. Doesn't mean I can't sing better. Doesn't mean I can't be a better football player backyard in Central Park. You got to put in the work, and you have to be self-aware of your upside. The other thing is we have too many students who now think that entrepreneurship is cool. If you weren't selling lemonade and baseball cards or pogs or burning CDs and flipping them in school, like if you don't have sales DNA or operational DNA, or it wasn't fun to play store when you were 5, you didn't gravitate towards it naturally. You're gravitating towards it now because it's cool.
Right, and I take it you did all those things.
All those things.
Right.
And so did so many of the people that are successful as entrepreneurs.
Right, yep, yeah.
The same as singers went to choir. The same as actors signed up for the thespian club freshman year.
Right.
Like it matters, the work matters, the talent matters.
What about?
You don't get to wake up one day and just say, I'm gonna start the Uber of bananas.
Right.
Like it's just crazy what's going on out there. Like just the greatest generation of fake entrepreneurship we've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's because of the internet. I mean, right?
It's so easy to just.
Right. And it's cool, right?
Because it's cool.
It's cultural.
If us said we're gonna be rappers, that's cool too. But very quickly we have to prove if we can rap. I'd be like, cool, rap, and then you can't, and you're like, you're not a rapper. Right. I could say I'm gonna be a professional basketball player. Well, I say I'm gonna be a basketball player. I'm like, cool, show me. You can't prove to somebody in 1 second that you're not an entrepreneur.
Right, right. So let me ask you about speaking.
Okay.
You do speaking, right?
I do.
Motivational speaking, you could call it. I mean, are you concerned, Gary, that it's manipulative?
Of course.
Of course.
But I don't think I'm manipulative. I think that people want to make me a motivational speaker, but I'm not. If you go watch 1 hour keynote on YouTube,
right.
Listen to what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm not talking about the secret. I'm not, just listen to the words. I'm motivational in my DNA. I'm a rah-rah guy. I'd be a great high school coach. You know, I know how I come off, but I ask anybody who wants to throw that cynicism at me to go read the transcript of what I'm saying. Right. I am the most practical, immigrant, operating person you will find. There is no delusion in my optimism.
Right.
There is no delusion in my optimism. It's funny that you asked me that question based on the last 6 minutes of this interview, if you think about it, right? It makes me happy the way it went. I don't think the last 6 minutes were like, hey, and I'm gonna manipulate it that it's so easy. I'm desperately trying to tell people this is super hard.
Right.
I'm equally saying, how lucky are we that we can even try? Yeah. Our grandparents couldn't start a company after hours on a phone.
Right, yeah.
This is the greatest era of the at-bat. You're not guaranteed to hit a home run.
Right, right.
This is the greatest era of the at-bat. That's cool. That makes me happy. There's a lot of people struggling, paying for college loans, and they get home at 7 p.m. and I'm saying to them, let me motivate you to not use Netflix and 2K and beer to escape your problems. Let me motivate you to, at 7 p.m. to spend the next 5 hours to build something for yourself on Shopify or eBay or Instagram or YouTube to get you out of your situation.
Right.
Got it?
Yep, I got it.
It's practical.
What?
I actually believe that my natural showmanship DNA, my shtick that is my DNA, grossly undermines what I'm doing. People think it's why I'm successful. I think it's undermining my upside.
You mean because people just say you're all form and no content?
I literally threw up in my own mouth when you said I was a motivational speaker.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't want to do that to you.
You didn't, but I'm telling you a very important truth.
Yeah, okay.
I get it, and I understand it. I look that part, but I continue to push people to listen to what I'm saying.
Right.
I can't change, right? I'd love to be lower, but I'm pumped.
That's who you are. So how do you prioritize? How do you choose what you do? How do you allocate your time, number one?
My admins rule my life. I literally had no clue we were doing this just now.
We're doing it.
I'm aware. Like she walked over, she's like, you ready? I'm like, okay. I didn't even know it was the Yahoo one. That, my calendar rules my life. Mm-hmm. Me and my team are thoughtful about what we book.
Right.
I spend the far majority of being the operator of Vayner.
Right.
But I do use my personal brand as a top of the funnel awareness to drive my business.
Right.
Right? So bringing value for, I'm filming this for my own content bringing value to your platform, and then the serendipity of somebody becoming aware of me, digging in, then looking, so I do use my personal brand as a top of the funnel business development tool for my businesses.
Where do you want to take this? I mean, it's the old, where do you see yourself 20 years from now, Gary? But I mean, it's important, right?
No, it's a very important. I like being thoughtful of what I'm doing professionally.
Yeah.
The two things that I'm most excited about are the continuous journey of the ambition of trying to buy the New York Jets, which is my absolute professional goal. That's right.
I mean, and is that serious? Are you serious about that?
As a heart attack.
Right.
Yeah, it's been my goal for my whole life.
Do the current owners know this? Are they aware of this?
You know what's funny? I'm not sure, and I have no interest in wasting their time because I'm not anywhere close yet to the financial level that I need to be. Probably do. I put it out there quite a bit. And my path to that is to build Vaynermedia, to build the greatest marketing engine in the world, to then buy historic brands when the economy collapses. So I want to buy Tootsie Rolls or Reebok
right.
And then I want to become the CEO of that. So I want to buy something in the next decade for $200 to $500 million. Then I want to run it for a decade and then flip it for $3 to $5 billion and buy the Jets. And then I want to make content that leaves a positive legacy in allowing people to, at least use me as a context point. This is how I'm doing it. Take what works for you and play some legacy on the content.
Wow. That is well thought out and clearly defined.
I appreciate it.
So last question, Gary.
Yes.
How do you see yourself using your influence on the world? It's kind of at your core.
I believe that in 40 years, people will realize during this period of time that I was one of the few unique individuals who had the ability to penetrate 15 to 25-year-old young men and was able to reframe their mind of not being as into watches and private jets and models and cash, but made them start respecting things like patience and gratitude and empathy and kindness, and that I will be far more revered after I'm gone for doing it than I'll ever be while I'm around doing it.
Gary Vaynerchuk, thanks so much for talking with us today, and thanks for having us here.
Thank you.
I'm Andy Serwer. You've been watching Influencers. We'll see you next time.
Social media can catapult a blogger to superstardom, but it takes way more than clever tweets. Sisters Huda and Mona Kattan know this well. Huda is one of the most famous people in the world of beauty and fashion, appearing on Time magazine's list of the most influential people on the internet. Her nearly 40 million Instagram followers, who go to Kattan for tips on the latest beauty trends and products, have helped her build a net worth of $610 million. Mona Kattan, Huda's sibling and business partner, used finance and PR savvy to turn Huda's talent into a massive moneymaker. They already have a line of beauty products. Now they're set to launch Huda Beauty Investments, which will mentor and fund entrepreneurs in the space. Plus, Huda will continue to star in a reality show for Facebook Watch. Huda and Mona are here to talk about how to build celebrity from the ground up and how to make money on it if you do. I'm with Huda and Mona Kattan, who are the owners and founders of Huda Beauty. So great to see you guys. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
We're honored to be here.
So honored. We love Yahoo Finance.
Right, love that.
She's on it every morning.
Right. Oh, really?
I am, yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, first of all, maybe one of the most famous thing about you guys is the number of Instagram followers. So Huda, I want to ask you about that. First of all, what is it like to have, nearly 40 million Insta followers?
It's incredible. It's amazing because, you do have the ability to impact and to influence and get people to buy products, but it's also a lot of responsibility as well. So I think there is a little bit of pressure with that. But I do feel like I am supposed to be doing this, so I enjoy it.
And so, Mona, talk about your roles. And you have another sister in the business as well? Three
Yes.
sisters? Wow, does that work out? I mean,
Sometimes. Yeah. We have our days.
My role has continuously evolved in the company, and I think all of ours has. But from day one, it was Huda, our sister Alia, and myself working with the business. Huda's the founder, and we helped co-found the business. But I think, any startup, it's like you just have to wear whatever hat is necessary. So it's really evolved over time. Now I think I'm just really honing in on one of our sub-brands, which is called Kayali. It's our fragrance launch brand, which is really exciting. And Huda's helping me really become a founder of a brand, because before I was just involved in really the boring things like finance and legal. And
That's
like,
not boring to our audience. Come
I
on.
do love it.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
We both studied finance,
Yeah.
but I think I'm having more fun now just learning from Huda.
And did you urge her to start her beauty blog 10 years ago? Almost 10 years ago in April, right?
Yeah.
Yes. April 19th.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually in PR consulting at the time. So I had always been telling people you need to start a blog to help build your profile. But Huda was actually like sharing information all the time anyway. She actually had a blog, but not really. So it was just like make it formal, because she used to send email send outs to all her close friends and tell them what products to buy just for fun. Like, for no reason at all. I was
People
like,
wanted
this
a
is-
list.
All my friends were like, put me on Huda's email list. So she was blogging without even knowing it, but she formally started it when she started makeup.
She forced me.
It worked out.
It worked out. I'm so glad I listened to her.
But Huda,
she doesn't
so-
listen to me.
She
Oh
doesn't?
God, let's
No.
not go there right now.
That sounds like a pretty
I'm
good
starting
partnership.
to.
Works
We're
out.
sisters.
So a lot of people try to do what you do, want to do what you do. How come yours just clicked like this?
I think a lot of people from the outside looking in assume it's easy. They think that I'm just in this office and I'm just, creating content and I'm, making product and I'm just having the time of my life. They don't realize how much goes into running a company, whether that is managing cash flows, which I think is one of the biggest problems when people are starting businesses, especially, being a young founder. I think that's one of the things that really stop you from moving forward. And I think that a lot of times too, they don't have the vision. They're not like long, they're very short-sighted. I think they're not long-term focused. And I think that was one of the things that we've always been is very long-term greedy. So I don't want to be, thinking about the business in the next 5 to 10 years. It's like, okay, when we die, what's going to exist? I really look up to Estee Lauder as a company. I think they're amazing. I love what they've done. I think Estee Lauder herself is amazing. I'd love to be the next Estee Lauder. That's our goal.
So this background in finance probably helped you guys a lot, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't want to study finance. Neither one of us did, but our father was really into just securing our future. So I think that's why we both studied it. And I worked in banking for a little while, and I think that's
She
what
loves
helped.
finance. She's lying.
I do. I love finance.
tell.
I'm not gonna lie. I do. I do. Okay. I'm a nerd. Sorry.
Well, so then you guys are, it's a beauty blog essentially with superpowered by finance brains.
I mean, thank you. But I
thank
think
you.
I think I'm more of a marketing person. Mona really is incredibly savvy.
You
with
guys are
finances.
business people a little bit too.
Do you know what's so funny is I never thought that we were. I never really thought I was a businesswoman. When Mona told me to start the blog and, she forced me to start lashes as well, I was like, this isn't for me. And I would do interviews and people were like, maybe you're going to be the next Bobby Brown. I was like, what? I was like, do you hear yourself? Do you hear how crazy that is? But ultimately, I feel like you don't really know what you're capable of until you, get pushed into a corner and then you can blossom or ultimately, not. You can crack. So I think we were put in positions. We were fortunate enough to have each other and a really wonderful team around us to create, something that is incredible. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned your dad pushing you into finance, and your parents immigrated from Iraq to the United States,
That's
correct?
right,
And
yeah.
talk about growing up in America that way.
I mean, that was rough, to be honest. We definitely, when my dad immigrated into the States, he came in on a scholarship, but he had 4 children, so we definitely, I think, faced a lot of issues, and there's obviously, this simple issues like, being on welfare. And I remember having a lot of memories of that, struggling with a lot of basic things that, now it's like, you look back at it and you're like, it's really incredible that everybody does have an opportunity if they work hard enough, if they have the right perception, because that was a big thing too. Not thinking you're capable, not thinking that you are worthy of a certain life is like the most fundamental thing that people need to change. And I felt like when we changed that, that's when when ultimately our business changed. But it did take a long time to get there.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that our parents have been so supportive, especially our father. He's been our rock. But for the longest time, he didn't believe we could achieve something out of business. He was like, I don't know why you guys are doing this. Go find a job. Go find a real job. Because, he came from a struggling family too. So he always believed in securing your future through education, which is why he has like 5 degrees. But, for him, I think he didn't really believe in us till like year 4 of the company. He was always like, what are you guys doing? I don't understand what you do all day, but I'm going to support you.
I would tell him like, Dad, we're going to make this pallet and we're going to sell like 3,000 pallets. And he was like, let's see. His answer to me was always like, in Arabic is like, inshuf, which means like, let's see. Like you think something's possible, but it's not. And it's so funny because, he's around, and he's in his mid to late 70s now. And he really is changing now as a person. His perception now is changing. He says to us all the time, you've taught me a lot about leadership. You've taught me a lot about perception. And it's incredible because it's a beautiful thing when you see that happen.
Absolutely. I think mindset is probably 90% of your success. You have to have the right mindset.
But how did you sell like those first 3,000 pellets? Those are
sold more.
Right. Those are little makeup pieces.
They're about this big.
Right. So how did that happen? I mean, you just put them up on the internet and people bought them?
We really were fortunate enough to be in the wave of social media. So we did use Facebook originally to push our blog. We didn't have a lot of money, so we're using like $10 ads on Facebook, which was amazing. That really helped us cultivate a following on the blog. And then when Instagram came around, it was the perfect timing. So we were really, pushing on Instagram, studying like crazy. I think one thing we were very serious about making it and becoming successful on social media. So we were studying everything. We know now data is so powerful and you can learn so much about, yourself and creating product with data. So we were really like studying what people were liking, what they weren't liking, small little things about, would this photo get more likes? And so we were able literally to create product and packaging based on all those things.
And so you guys are based in Dubai now. Why is that?
Well, I've been in Dubai since 2002. Initially, my dad moved us out there just to try something new. He was like, I got this job opportunity to set up a program, and he just wanted us to go for a year. And honestly, it just sucked us in. There's like a thing in Dubai where you go for a year and you stay for a lifetime. So we're like one of those people. I've been there for 17 years now. And I think it's just a land of opportunity and entrepreneurship. It's the leaders there are very visionary. I mean, the ruler of Dubai, he's an entrepreneur himself. He believes in startups. He brings this culture out in Dubai of like really encouraging businesses, even if you fail. It's this land of no regrets and just enthusiasm, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And are your products and sales mostly in the Middle East or the United States or both, or how does it work globally?
So we're actually a very global business, which is amazing because a lot of beauty brands, they'll really infiltrate the States, but going out of the States, they struggle. And we've been very fortunate to be able to launch against really big beauty brands without spending $1 on marketing and obliterate that, to say it nicely.
Right.
So yeah, but it's honestly just because of social. And I do think it does go back to those like small advertising dollars that we used in different places. I know it sounds like weird, but we grew followings in those different locations. So whether we were advertising in some places, like didn't necessarily make sense, but I was like, I feel like in Nigeria, they love makeup. I feel like in New York, that's where all the press lives. And I feel like in LA, it's all Hollywood. So we chose like different countries. In India, they love makeup. In Saudi, they have like, they love social media. So we picked out different countries. And so when we launched, also France, because they had a big Arab community. So when we launched in these places, people were like scratching their heads. Even the retailers at the time were like, "Oh, you're not going to really succeed here." And then we did.
And if I could just add to that, I think that one amazing thing about advertising on Facebook was that you're advertising to a community and you retain that community versus, other places where you can geo-target the demographic, like Google, for instance, you don't retain that community afterwards. So it's really interesting to see something like Facebook where you build a community for life.
You guys know your social.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like been doing it for 10 years. So, but you were saying, Huda, that you actually like being a little bit out of the fray, being in Dubai, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people assume because all the influencers, majority of them, especially like the bigger ones, are in LA. And socials in LA, the beauty brands are all moving to LA. I think everybody was under the assumption that we were going to move there. And as sometimes, we definitely wondered if we should, but I love being away from everyone. There's no noise. I'm in perfect focus. I can see everything really, really clearly.
So how does the business work? Right? You're on social, you're selling makeup, you're doing promoted posts. How does it all come together?
We're not doing promoted posts too much right now. Our shop Instagram account does, but other than that, we don't really do too many promoted posts anywhere else. But the business is interesting because I think in many ways we are backwards. Most businesses, from what I've understood from just interviewing people, they'll be like, okay, we want to make this much money. How do we do it? And then they'll kind of work backwards where I'm like, I feel like I'm craving this product. And, it'll kind of start from there. And sometimes that product won't necessarily make that much money. But I'm like, but I know it's going to create a movement. People will grab onto the trend. It's a very long-term focus. And, luckily, I've been right enough times where we've took chances that the team trusts me now.
And you source from all over the world and sell all over the world at this point, right?
We do. Our manufacturers are all over the world, primarily Europe, Italy. We look for the best. We do not negotiate on quality. It's quality and customers first.
And what does the future hold for you guys? I mean, you're doing Facebook Watch again, and you've got Huda Investments, right? How does that
That's
all work?
right.
I've been reading up.
Oh my God, I am so impressed. I am so impressed. So we do have a company, a subsidiary. It's a sister company called Huda Beauty Investments, and we do have our own team there, our own CEO there, and we are doing investments in various projects. Some of them have been technology focused. Some of them have been, different types of marketplaces. And then, we just recently, of course, started our Huda Beauty Angels, which is, there's stuff going on there, but we'll have to save that for another conversation.
And finally, last question. Do you have other investors, and are you looking to maybe do an IPO at some point? What does the financial future, the business future hold?
We have one investor, TSG Consumer Group, which they're just phenomenal partners. Honestly, they've been so strategic and really they're long-term greedy as well. Like they're not about 1 year or 2 years. They're thinking about the vision with us, and they've been great partners. But I don't think we're looking to raise any more capital anytime soon. And I think long-term we'll probably go the IPO route most likely.
All right, we'll be watching for that. It's exciting.
Stay tuned.
Mona Kattan, Huda Kattan, thank you so much for coming on Yahoo Finance.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Welcome back from our conversation with Huda and Mona Kattan. I'm joined now by Kennedy Johnson and Carrie Justick, both from Yahoo Lifestyle and Entertainment. Great to see you guys.
Hi. Thank you.
Now, you both have covered Huda Kattan and know a lot about her, which is more than I can say. Now I've learned a lot about her, but you guys have known about her for quite some time. Kennedy, let me start with you and ask you, what do you think her greatest impact is?
On me personally?
Yeah.
I'd say the coin, the money. Just watching a woman make so much money in the industry of beauty really encourages me to keep myself in the business of YouTube because sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming. But she created a product, and with the product, it became really popular online, and that is like a thing for me. I want to do something in that industry as well, maybe not with beauty products, but just with creating something for my audience that is great to watch from her. So that's awesome.
And Carrie, when did you first learn about Huda Kattan?
Probably the way that I would say most of her followers did. I was very much into YouTube growing up, and that's where I learned a lot about makeup and the beauty business in general. And then Instagram, I think I started following new people on there. So that's probably where I found her in particular. I think when I was younger, a lot of the makeup videos that I watched on YouTube were a little less about the art of it. It was a little more innocent and playful. And as you see with Huda, like Kennedy just said, it's a full-blown business. I look at her as an insanely talented artist. So I think that's more of what I was looking for as I got older and continued to look for new people on the platforms.
Is she really different from other makeup artists like that? Are there a lot of other ones like her?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, to be honest, yes. But I think the draw with Huda is she has products that do really, really well.
Yeah.
So she's created something that people actually want to buy and use, and they want to show people that they have it. It's a popular product, and it's something about putting the little palette up to your face with the eyes. She has a palette with the eyes on it. Palette. And it's a really popular thing. And when you make a video like that, it could go viral itself. So you kind of like associate yourself to the brands and like the popularity when you use her stuff.
I was going to say, I also think she's kind of a mix between aspirational and attainable, and that's just the way that she uses her platform.
Yeah.
So obviously she is coming out with these incredible products. She lives an incredible life that not all of us obviously live, but at the same time, she's connecting with her audience to the point where you learn about her backstory, you learn about how she's gotten to where she is, and then she also takes the products that she's making and teaches you exactly how to use them. So in some way, you're like, okay, I can kind of do this, you know?
Right. I mean, but it's not so easy just to put pictures up on Instagram. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, of course.
So is she kind of like a Kardashian, do you think? I mean, sometimes people say that she's like a Kardashian, that she's like Kim, I think, right?
Sure, and like in ways of like being extremely popular. And maybe even looks too. I've seen her a couple times and been like, Kim, is that you? It's not her. It's Huda. I mean, when you're on Instagram and you are popular, you can easily be a part of that Kardashian mix, because at the end of the day, the Kardashians are extremely popular and they use social media in the same way that I think Huda does, which is just a way for her audience to see her more. Doesn't she have a Facebook Live show?
So I was going to say, I think like her Facebook Watch show shows you that they kind of are the Kardashians of the beauty business, just because it is a family business. And obviously you had her and Mona on, so that just shows their dynamic, but people from the show know her dad and her husband and her daughter, and they're all on Instagram, and so it's kind of the same thing where she, I would say, is the Kim, and then the other people start gaining interest just from kind of being in her universe.
I mean, is she like the next Estee Lauder?
I thought it was really interesting that she said that. Estee Lauder obviously is such an iconic brand, and we haven't seen anything come up in our time that's similar to that. So that's why I just would never pair the two. But I thought it was really interesting, and just her whole thing about talking about being long-term greedy. I loved that because I think especially for influencers nowadays, we think their platform is so fleeting. Like if you delete Instagram, what are these people going to do?
Right.
But she really has built a brand and a reputation, and people outside of social media, I think, will still know who she is. I don't think 40 million followers just disappears like that. I think they would still buy her products, and it can go on for a long time.
Well, then there's the flip side, which I want to drill down to a little bit more, which is building to that 40 million. I mean, and I just want to try to figure that out. I mean, is this something, Kennedy, you think anybody can do, or does it take luck and talent and skill? I mean, how do you get there? How did they get there, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think anybody can do it, or we'd all have millions of followers.
Right.
Yeah,
what does it take?
I do think it's a mix of having a talent or having something that people are drawn to and that they want to subscribe to. She has, like I have mentioned multiple times, a product that people really like using, and she has great products. I use her concealer. You had a bag full of stuff from her line.
I have couldn't you just
get some makeup and do it yourself?
What do you mean?
She kind of got the makeup from someone, I guess, mixing up in pots. See, I'm not a makeup person, you can tell.
She's mixing it up in pots.
Well, someone to mix it up for her, right?
It's the whole package. Huda and her sister have created a whole system. It's product, it's being accessible online, and people being able to get to know them in that way, and with the show, and people really relating to them in their own way, and then also them being women of color, and specifically that she's Arab, right? I think that she has an audience that looks to her as an opportunity to be more free. I think when you are living in a country where as a woman, you're typically silenced, seeing a woman who is using her platform to express herself through beauty, I think is really attractive to a lot of people. So I think a lot of her followers are drawn to that because it's like, wow, I want that too.
Right, so she's a paradigm that way, right?
Yeah, it also doesn't go without saying that her beauty account is a collection of, we were talking about this before, videos and posts from people other than herself as well. So it's kind of like the weird success that meme accounts have had. And for her, she's giving all of these other artists a platform. Those people that she's posting don't have 40 million followers, but when I want to go and check that out and I don't just see her face, I'm seeing faces from people all over the world. I think it's a really cool collection.
All right, now I've discovered Huda Kattan. You guys have known about her for a long time, but who are the next Huda Kattans out there? What do you think, Kennedy?
Oh, wow.
That's you too, Carrie.
I mean, I don't know who the next Huda Kattan is. There are a lot of amazing beauty gurus out here who are doing their thing, specifically Jackie Aina, who is fantastic. And she doesn't have her own product. She has product collaborations that she's done, but she's definitely in that lane of being one of the biggest beauty gurus of our time.
I would
How about
say,
you, Carrie?
I don't know if she'll achieve it, but Tati Westbrook, she's another very popular beauty influencer, and she just came out with her first product, a new palette, and she talks about expanding. So I think her mindset is to get there. I don't know if she will. And I think really in the beauty space, the only thing that's comparable, just the dynamic of social media and everything too, is Kylie Cosmetics, even though it's very different and there was an advantage there just from her being a Jenner, but I think the two can be compared.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's sort of a whole new category, though, right? So it's a makeup artist, beautician, cosmetics person, and celebrity in the same package, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Huda is a celebrity.
In her own right, absolutely. And the thing is that Instagram can make you a celebrity, and that's absolutely what happened with her. She's got Instagram, she's got the blog, she's got YouTube. Does she have YouTube?
Yeah.
She has YouTube. She's touching all the major markets, and you have to if you really want to have a following of that size.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Kennedy and Carrie, thank you so much for your insight. That was great.
Yes.
All right, you've been watching Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll see you next time.